So before we finish placing all of our beams, maybe you should take maybe I should take a minute to review with you some of the reasons why the structure is different on the two ends. So this is an end condition, and actually if I can select in here, I might catch one of these beam elements. Let's see if I can grab it. There's one of the beam elements right there. And you'll notice that it only goes back one bay, but its actual purpose is to cantilever out and support this other beam, kind of stiffen the whole assembly in this end condition, because we actually need this to support the top roof structure. So we're going to add in this intermediary beam and then this transverse beam as an extra element. All of these are intended to help support this cantilevering section of the roof. And if we look at this in another view, maybe you can see it better. So in this condition, we have these beam elements that are out here, and we've added these secondary beams to help support these mid structures. In the actual construction, these elements exist primarily because these are actually even lighter elements. We're using all one size, but we're going to duplicate this kind of a framing arrangement. So let's go to our model and complete this framing. If I can find it. There we go. All right, and another element here is that we should review this idea of this being a custom beam and the parameters that we can adjust. So I've got it set right now with the beam depth of 2 foot, the beam width of 8 inches. And that means that if it's 2 foot deep, the overall beam depth will be 2 foot 4 inches, because remember we have that radius on the bottom, and that adds the 4-inch radius. And I've adjusted so that these meet up perfectly with each other by adjusting the top of column at 80 feet and the top of steel at 82 feet 4 inches. So let's go ahead to the top of column and finish placing our steel elements. Oops, sorry. Got to go to structural. They don't give you beams here. Custom beam. All right, so we've already placed our first beam. Let's go ahead and place our next beam, and that is, oops, I don't want my placement plane to be the level 1. I want it to be top of steel. So we've got the one in place. We'll go ahead and place the next one, place the next one, place the next one. Might be a little hard to see on my screen the locations of the columns, so we'll go transverse. And we'll take a look at that in a 3D view. So our major column assembly. Now we'll go back and we'll place in these intermediary pieces of structure. So I'll just zoom in here, and we'll grab that beam again, and we'll go from the column back there to the front edge of our structure. And we'll go to the back and do the same thing. And we'll take a look at that in a 3D view. And so now all we need are our transverse supports. And we may not actually have a grid for that, come to think of it. So let's go back and look here. We want those mid supports to fall right in there. So what I'll do is I'll just place another beam and see if we can't. Well, actually we can calculate it. That would be 32.5 divided by, hold on, 32.5 divided by 2, 16.25. And we'll go back to the front and we'll do the same thing. Oops. Hold on here. And it looks like we have a couple of errors here. These are placed not at the top of steel. Well, that one is right. This one is wrong. This one is at top of column. So I must have the wrong setting. I'm going to go back and delete these. Sorry about that volume. Oops. All right, so we'll go back to top of steel. Well, let's work at level 1 so we can see what's going on here. And let's go ahead and place the beam and make sure that it's at top of steel. I could try to turn that volume down. Okay, now we're back into the grid system. And then our last one is to place those 2 long transverse beams again. Top of steel. And we want to be 16.25. And there we go. Now we're ready for installing our top. Actually, I think, let me go back and review here. I may have not put in all the steel that I did on the original project. Let me see what the I have these intermediate steel elements that I've left off of here. So just to keep it consistent with that one, I'll go back and add, whoops. Go back to the 3D view. I don't have these in-between elements here. So let me go ahead and place those. I've got to place 3 more. Go to level 1. Top of steel. And we're going to place these intermediary. Okay, now I think we're good to go for starting to place the top, how would you describe it, shuttered roof system or louvered roof system. Let's go ahead and actually take a better 3D view of what we've got constructed here and maybe render it out before we end this. So I'm going to go to view, and just get a little view coming down at the structure and set up some rendering. Just going to bring up the lighting a little bit and pull down the shadows because there's a lot of structure going on. Well, there we go. It looks a little more like something. We can come in and zoom in and kind of look at what that detail is. I was a little concerned I wasn't tapering down enough to that point, but I think it's looking pretty good. So our next thing will be to address the issue of how we might construct that roof structure.